Contract negotiations between UPS and the Teamsters Union have stalled, meaning that the largest single employer strike in our nation's history is looming. What does that mean for the labor movement and our economy at large? Those are the questions we'll be answering here on The Left Wing. I'm John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics, joined by my co-host Desmond Price, the Independent Thought Podcast, and TJ from Power is Taken, Not Given. Let's get it started. So first of all, I do think this strike is going to happen. I think we should be talking about this like it is going to happen because UPS seems to be holding the firm position that this will only be a temporary inconvenience to them. Even if UPS were to lose some market share leading up to and during a strike, their CEO, his name's Tancredi, he predicts the impacts would be temporary. He said that most shipping customers would ultimately go back to UPS, partly due to familiarity with the company and its delivery system. However, NPR interviewed a transportation procurement expert at a consulting firm called Insight Sourcing Group. The expert's name was Tommy Storch, and he said that many UPS customers would likely shift to a more diverse carrier set, keeping a higher percentage of their volume with other carriers to protect their business from future disruptions, which I tend to agree with because that just makes sense. And I'm surprised that they weren't doing that already. UPS, and he quotes, they might lose some people completely outright, but he thinks that more often than not, you'd see them try to put a little more volume with an alternative carrier moving forward. And that's probably best for the business and best for our, the transportation industry overall. The strike could have a massive impact on Americans and even the global economy. UPS reports that goods that they transport are equivalent to 6% of the U.S. GDP on any given day. An economic think tank called the Anderson Economic Group projects that a 10-day strike would cost the economy $7 billion, and a 15-day strike would cost UPS specifically $850 million. To date, the Teamsters Union has reached several agreements on 55 total non-economic issues, meaning like non-pay, such as what was widely reported. One of the biggest ones was how they didn't have AC in a lot of their trucks, and UPS employees were dying, and they had to negotiate to stop that from happening. But they have won every single negotiation, like on every other point except for pay. And the Teamsters argument here is that the UPS made $14 billion in profit in 2022. To put that into perspective for you guys, if they gave every union member a $20,000 raise right now, they would have still made $7 billion in profit. So that is what we're talking about in terms of money here. So I'm going to leave the floor open to you guys. Question here being, what do you think of this strike? And how do you see it fitting into the kind of larger scale the labor movement we're experiencing right now?
It's when we're seeing this strike happening, and we're also hearing that today that the actors are announcing that they're going to go on strike to join the writers' strike. And, we're seeing this mass, unionization effort happening around the country, notably at places like Amazon and places like Starbucks, and, the efforts are popping up individually all over the country. It's obvious that people are pissed off about being taken advantage of. It's not hard to kind of see the details being lined out. Like, as you described, John, $14 billion in profit. You can give out 20 grand to everyone individually and you'd still have 7 grand left over. That's unbelievable. Recently the Teamsters president, like Sean M. O'Brien, I saw an interview with him where he was talking about this fact that he was at the negotiating table, with, UPS, and he just flat out said to him, he's like, hey, it's like your CEO got a raise, your shareholders got a raise, all these executives got a raise, and yet you're telling us that there's no money left over for us. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this is coming off of the back of something to know about this particular union president is that the previous president of the Teamsters, apparently, they pushed a contract through that the rank and file members had voted down. And everyone was very upset with this. And so when this new president came in, he promised to be more diligent, to make sure that he was more aggressive, and that if the rank and file members wanted to authorize a strike, that they would go ahead and strike, and that he wouldn't push some contract on them that they didn't want. And 97% of these members did, in fact, authorize this strike. So, as normal for me, I support these people. It is does not make any sense to me whatsoever that these people are out there busting their ass every single day, working in the heat, especially with no AC until just now. And as we're getting into year over year, getting hotter and hotter, and these people are just asking for a raise, and they're like, I mean, we'll give ourselves a raise, but you, fuck that. No, no way. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, the AC thing. So I remember, I don't know when I learned that UPS drivers drove with no doors because they had no AC. It was a few years back, and are you serious? That it blew my mind. And
Yeah.
the fact that these workers, the union, had to beg to get AC in their vehicles. If you don't know anything else about the situation, you already know whose side to be on. You already know. And then mentioning, I didn't know that stat about the billions of dollars, and if they gave everyone 20 grand, that they still have seven billions left over. That there's two things about that stuck out to me. One, they are not asking for that. They're not asking for the 20 grand a year for everybody. And two, people will hear like unfortunately, you know, a lot of Americans are just economically illiterate is the wrong term, but like it's not too familiar, but they hear like X billion in profits. They're thinking groups like, no, this is money left over. This is after all the overhead, after all the labor costs, which is also a red flag when someone says labor costs instead of wages. It's like, no, it's wages. Let's get it right. And after all that is paid, that's what they have left over. And the union, all they're asking, like I saw three videos about this that really stuck out to me. One was a speech by protesters for UPS. The second was from the union president. I think it was Sean O'Brien. And the other one was from the UPS rep. Her name was Carol Tome or something like that. But the union representative was just saying that, listen, I mean, the protesters were saying that, listen, UPS made all of this money in profits and extra. We just want to be rewarded for our work. You know, it would have been possible without them. And they are not asking for something unreasonable. And the fact that they have to like beg for this is just shocking.
Our economy literally runs on these people. This is not like, I don't know. It shouldn't matter how like important a job is for it to be paid a fair wage and have a fair share of the profits. But these aren't unimportant jobs. These are people who are, it's a dangerous job. They are risking their lives. I mean, traffic fatalities are one of the leading causes of death in our country, and they are out there in these vehicles in 100-degree heat without AC, and they're not easy to drive vehicles. And, you know, it is a dangerous job, and like they deserve to be compensated. And as you mentioned, like they made, you know, UPS, all of these shipping companies made record profits, you know, over the pandemic, over the last several years. These people are frontline employees delivering the resources that everyone needed and giving them potential COVID exposure that a lot of us were fortunate enough to not have to deal with. And they're getting screwed. And that is something that happens all the time, all over this country. And specifically, like, this is an issue that I feel like, and I've said this on the left wing before, I've said this on my TikToks before, this shouldn't be a bipartisan issue. If you're listening to this and you consider yourself a conservative, come on, join this team, because this is your free market at work, bitch. Like, this is people organizing to negotiate the fair market value of their labor. Like, there is nothing more, anyone stepping in and stopping that from happening is going against the invisible hand of the market. And so this should be a nonpartisan issue that we can put aside everything that we think about social issues, all this culture war bullshit. Let's put that aside here. Like, I can agree to disagree on that as long as we can agree. I mean, I think you're wrong, but like, we should still form a unified front when it comes to us versus them, us being the working class and them being the fucking billionaire overlords that are literally trying to negotiate against their own employees to give them fucking air conditioning to stop them from dying of heat stroke. This is not some complicated moral issue. Like, we had a very complicated question last week about the LGBT discrimination and like, where does discrimination end and compelled speech begin? This ain't fucking complicated. This is kindergarten shit, guys. Like, $14 billion in profits, and they won't give them air conditioning. Go fuck yourselves.
If I may, I want to say this before I forget, where you talk about this should be an issue where conservatives, liberals, leftists, where we should all kind of agree that there's one victim party here, and it's not the CEOs, it's not the It's not the shareholders and everything. But when it comes to conservatives or right wingers in general, that when they say that they're against elites, they don't mean financial elites. Like they don't. They now like they mean like cultural or
Entertainment.
academic elites. That's what they really care about, like the cultural elite. So like Elon Musk is not an elite, although he's one of the richest human beings who's ever existed. Somehow he's not an elite. He's on their team. But the blue-haired feminist who works at Starbucks, that's an elite right there. So like that, the paradigm is all off for them. And I remember pointing this out. Do you guys remember? This would have been 2020, I think, or maybe 2021. There was the John Deere strike.
Yeah, it's 2021.
Yeah, so the John Deere strike came out. I didn't hear a lot of Democrats come out in support of it, which was disgraceful. I remember 5 or 6 off the top of my head, but no Republicans. I watched. I searched every day for most of them didn't mention it at all. Like the last time I saw Republicans support a major strike was Southwest. And that was because I think it was Southwest Airlines where they were on strike because of the vaccine mandates or something. They were all over that strike.
That's anyone who's ever flown Southwest has a reason to be pissed by that. So I don't like no one likes Southwest.
Yeah. So that's the kind of, and then when that happens, it's like, oh, look, we're supporting the working man. We're all for it. It's like, no, you're doing it for a cultural reason. When it comes to actual power, being disaggregated instead of consolidated, they are nowhere to be found. And like what the people are asking for, like John, you mentioned that they did give concessions for a lot of the non-financial ones. I looked up like what the sticking points were for the union.
Yeah.
One, they wanted no more excessive overtime. Basically, they said that you cannot work us more than 9.5 hours a day, more than 3 times a week. They have a system in there right now.
Asking for so much.
So they do have an opt-in system right now for senior employees where they can sign up and say, I want to be protected for this, 3 times a week overtime. But it doesn't apply to part-time workers and it doesn't apply to junior full-time employees, which goes in what you said, Desmond. It's what's really, really great about these labor uprisings we're seeing now is everyone has each other's back. And as the CEO and the big timers from UPS are remind us all the time, these drivers make 80, 90,000 a year. Yeah, the drivers know they're fine. They're talking about the package handlers. They're talking about the part-time employees. Like when you hear them talk, they're talking about the people who are getting screwed and the actors joining in to help with the writers. It is glorious to see. And if you can't support this, like if you see all of that in front of you and say, I don't know, the chief operating officer really needs to get, like, what is wrong? I just don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what plan.
I mean, it honestly, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I'm glad that we're seeing a little bit more of a coalescing between all of these different like working class factions coming together, because that's definitely what we need to be seeing in order for any of this to change. I wanted to give a small testimonial here. I came across a comment from a part-time member of UPS, and I think it was an important kind of like addition to add into this, because one thing I did not know before kind of like looking into the story deeper was that yes, while the full-time members are getting paid like 90,000, the Teamsters president didn't kind of like clarify that. He was saying like, hey, these people are working 60 hours a week, that they're busting their asses, and like honestly, we can afford to pay them more, for the kind of standard that they are providing for the economy. As John was mentioning too, how many packages are people getting through places like Amazon right now? Like there is so much work these people have to get done on a day in, day out basis. But aside from the full-time workers, literally 50% of all of the members of UPS's workforce are part-time. And I want to talk about them specifically right now. One part-time member was talking about how being a ramp worker, he's only guaranteed like 3 hours a day, but yet they also schedule him in a way that if at any point in time that they ask you to stay longer, you have to stay longer, else you actually run the risk of losing your job. So it makes it impossible for him to schedule a second job to have, because he never knows what he's going to be able to do on these given days. But he also can't live off 3 hours a day from UPS. So they're asking for an unrealistic expectation of half of their workforce. So that needs to absolutely stop. And these people need to be paid more. So like, yeah, if these part-timers, they're getting paid like what, 16, 18, in some cases $20 an hour, but they're only tearing you 3 hours a day. How can anybody survive off of something like that?
Yeah, and let's not get it fucking twisted here, Desmond. If Biden steps in and stops this strike from happening in the same way that he did the rail strike, you're going to see me flipping shit about this every week on every fucking episode we do, whether it's related to this or not. Because why? Let's ask the question here. Why is 50% of the workforce part-time? Why does that make sense? Why would you not want your employees working full-time for you? Wouldn't that make them more efficient employees? Well, it's because of the fucking benefits. Because in this country, we tie healthcare to employment. But you know who you don't have to pay for healthcare for? Your part-time employees. You can work them. You can work them a full-time, amount of work as long as you call them part-time. I mean, this isn't UPS, but my girlfriend works for Five Below. She works 40 hours a week, but it's technically a temp position that she's been working for almost a year now.
Wow.
I don't know how the fuck it's legal, but she doesn't get goddamn healthcare. And these loopholes are all in the fucking system because we don't provide universal fucking healthcare, and we tie it into employment instead, so that these companies can take advantage of the fact, and the non-part-time workers can be just, well, at least I have healthcare, and make them less likely to fight for the people that don't. But 97% of this union is saying we're getting together and we're going to say fuck you, and I'm so glad that they are. And, a little peek behind the left-wing curtain here, guys. Every Wednesday, me, Desmond, and Erica get together and we're like, okay, so what are our topics this week? And we're kind of deciding what the time. This was one of the ones we were debating. And I was like, because of the stuff that's coming about SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild, I was like, I kind of want to get like on my fucking soapbox about these unions and this labor movement, because it's pissing me the fuck off. Like the other day, yesterday, a studio executive said to, I think it was Deadline, they said, we want to starve these guys out. We want to make it so that they're losing their homes and their apartments. And today, Bob Iger, fucking CEO of Disney, said that he thinks that they're being unrealistic, the writers, and that it troubles him. And I was like, go fuck yourself. Your goddamn compensation is half of the entirety of what your writers are asking for. Half. Like, yeah, I'm so pissed at these people. And as I said every day, you can continue to be upset about trans people. You can continue to fight for pro-life, but I will fight for your goddamn right to fuck your employer over if you join a union. I will not cross that pivot line for you. And I think that everyone on the right should be doing the same exact fucking thing.
I can't wait to see them do this. That'll be fun. But another thing I saw with the Screen Actors Guild, I saw something like right before I hopped on that studios are working on getting the images of their extras and having them AI'd into the background of video, so you don't have to hire actual extras. And it's like, people, how sustainable do you think this economic system is? Like, how far do you think this can actually go? Like, not paying people, reducing the amount of jobs, replacing people with machines as much as you can, we're cutting their hours in just really obviously malicious ways. Like, I learned so much about this UPS strike, and I was potential strike. Yeah. But one thing I learned, I think you touched on it, about how they screw over the part-time workers in very creative ways. And they have they have senior part-time workers senior full-time workers and junior full-time workers. And the junior full-time workers do not work Monday through Friday. They work Tuesday through Friday as like loaders and package carrier stuff. But on Saturday, if they want to be full-time, they need to drive as well, but they are not paid the same rates as your senior full-time drivers, which is another thing that they fall for. No, we don't want a two-tiered system. First off, you're making these people work weekends anyway, which is kind of shitty. Like, you're forcing them to do it if they want to be full-time. They want to take that, they want to stop that. But if you're going to do it, make them full-time employees and get rid of because like your full-time employee can make like $40 an hour as a senior, but as a junior, like, you can start as low as 18 or 20 and max out around 31, 32. So like they get really creative with this, and watching people coalesce around this and realize that this is unsustainable has been glorious to watch.
And the bottom line of UPS's balance sheet, they made $100 billion. Everybody got paid through COVID except for our members. When you think about it, the shareholders got paid, the executives got paid, the CEO got paid and rewarded, and they never touched or forwarded a package. So, it's a little bit frustrating, especially, the earnings that UPS has been making as a result of the hard work of our 340,000 Teamsters. And it's frightening when you see our part-timers. It's actually embarrassing for UPS when part-timers are making, living in poverty in some of the big cities. They're on subsidized housing. So it's time for UPS to do the right thing and reward these folks. UPS is so focused on Wall Street, they're forgetting about Main Street. Main Street are the people that we represent, the people we have the privilege to work for every single day. And they need to reward Main Street. Everybody else is getting paid that hasn't even touched a package or forwarded a package.